Today, we're going a little bit deeper into the topic of the INFJ door slam. It is something that INFJs have continuously experienced. If you don't know what it is, INFJ door slamming means if an INFJ has given their all, they've sacrificed, they try to be understanding, all of that, and the other person doesn't appreciate it, and on top of that, it's just sucking us dry. In those moments, INFJs really have to door slam. They have to shut that person out and set really harsh boundaries. So let's talk about it today, but not from the perspective of what the INFJ door slam is. There are enough videos on this, but I want to talk about closing the door much sooner. There is a reason why we're forced to door slam, because I've never ever in my life have met an INFJ, worked with an INFJ, talked with an INFJ who's told me, oh, I love door slamming. So I'm somebody who's worked with thousands of INFJs over the last 10 years, and I can tell you door slamming is something that is horrible to us all, and we don't want it to get this far. And so the point is to not say, okay, I'm going to never do door slams again because I'm just going to stay away from people. It's actually something different that we're supposed to do, something that works really, really well. And that is to close the door and let other people knock on it first. So let's look at it from the perspective of how does this look like in our real life, what needs to change, and how we can make that change happen. Before we get started, remember, if you haven't done this so far, to download the free poster on the INFJ Epic Life formula. And if you want to take it to the next level, get the INFJ Epic Life audio guide. So that's all about creating your INFJ Epic Life on your terms. This is specifically made and tailored for INFJs. It's something that has worked wonders for me and for the people who've gone through it. So I really encourage you to take a deeper look into it. Everything you need to know, you can find in the links in the description. So in theory, INFJ door slamming is not something we like. We all know that. But for so many INFJs, it seems like I don't have another choice. People just don't respect me. They don't value what I do for them. They don't see my worth. And so I inevitably get into situations where I have to door slam. The alternative is to not have any contact with people at all. And of course, that's not the solution either, because we need connection. But think of it in like this 3-step process. You have first the dependent stage. That's when you have all the situations where you feel like you're walking on eggshells, where you feel like I don't want to disrupt the peace. I don't want to disrupt the harmony. I don't want people to recognize me as a threat and actually as a target so they would, go after me. So I'm going to stay quiet. I'm going to stay behind the scenes. I'm actually going to try to help others. That's actually the dependent stage. Because you have to look at it from this perspective. We want to give, we have good intentions, all of that. Like, let's take it as a given. Of course, there are outliers, but from a perspective of archetypes, let's just say that's our default state. We already have the right intentions. We just have to aim higher. So this is the scenario where most door slams happen. Because you are in contact with people, you try to minimize yourself in order not to make people uncomfortable, which inevitably leads to this, I'm putting 70% into the relationship and you're only putting in 30%, right? Because they are creating the emotional atmosphere, they taking responsibility for it, and I'm just living in it. And then I continuously just try to adapt myself as much as possible to make it comfortable for them. And that's where resentment comes up. That's when people don't recognize that you've been actually sacrificing yourself because they never asked you for it. And we very often don't feel like there's another choice. But let's talk about it a little later. Then we have the second phase. This is the independent stage. This is what we call the hermit mode. This is what a lot of INFJs go through. Outside of the INFJ community, this is very often called the healing stage. And a lot of people get stuck in this healing stage because that is actually the stage where you say, I don't want to have those confrontations anymore. I don't want to have those situations anymore. This was so painful for me. I'm just going to be a hermit. I'm going to cut out all people from my life. I'm just going to have the bare minimum of social interactions because that is definitely going to be better than what I was used to. And that is definitely the case. This is definitely a step up. And I recommend every INFJ to go through that phase because it's in that phase that you recognize, what can I do to meet my own needs if I don't have anybody around me? This is, of course, very much a textbook independent stage of an INFJ because, of course, you can never be completely away from human interaction. That's just not possible. You need to talk to somebody when you go buy something. You may have family members. Like very little people can really go through life, let's say 10 years and not talk to another person. I don't even know if that's possible. It's a human need. We need to connect. So this is not something that is like all black and white. Okay, I don't talk to anybody, but you know the difference. You know, when you take a step back, from society, you say like, I'm just not going to play the game. I just want to make sure I'm at peace. And it's in those moments where we actually understand, okay, what is the core that is not up for debate that I'm going to stick to? What is a level of comfort that I can give to myself independent of the people around me? And so I might have contact with people, when it's a very mutual, beneficial situation, but I'm not really out to get my needs met at this level from other people. So that is the independent stage. The next one, and this is actually where we all should aim for, is the interdependent stage. And that's where I say you go out with a closed door and then you let people knock. Because think of the door slam as boundaries. Because what is the thing INFJs struggle most with? Guess what? It's boundaries. I am 100% convinced of that because of, so many reasons. One of them being that if we put up boundaries, people will actually see who we are, because it's actually boundaries who tell people who we are, believe it or not. Like every single person has different boundaries. Different things make them uncomfortable. One of the things that makes INFJs very uncomfortable is, for example, conflict, frustration happening outside of us, because we want a peaceful environment. And, we very often try to create peace, but then it's like a question of peace for whom? Because if we are trying to keep harmony outside, it's actually that we take on this harmony within ourselves, right? But this is just a side note. So think of it like this. The door slamming is a very strong boundary. So we're definitely capable of that, right? INFJs can set boundaries. That in itself is a boundary. And boundaries is actually our second function. Boundaries is extroverted feeling, because what you're doing is the following. This is who I am. This is the kind of energy that I demand for myself, and you don't have access to it. Because what we have learned throughout our life is the following. If anybody wants to be in contact with us, we have to leave the door wide open. That's the only way. Because if we actually put up those boundaries, nobody will want to be with us. And it's not necessarily that because we've experienced bad things in our childhood, which of course could very well be, but we also have to look at the fact that our second function is always a neglected function. It's our neglected strength. And this is not just like this for INFJs, this is like this for every single personality type. I really like to give examples of the opposite. So ENFJs, for example, completely different thing. Because they, although they give a lot, they set very often the emotional atmosphere, right? FE, the first thing. So their boundaries are very, very strict. So if you look into common negative traits, the INFJ falls into the codependent stage, which is, I don't have enough boundaries. And the ENFJ, on the other hand, has the tendency of acting in a narcissistic way. Right? So again, these are very extreme cases, but think of it like this. Somebody who is a narcissist has very, very strong boundaries. It's like my way or the highway in an extreme negative case, right? And in an extreme negative case of the INFJ, it's like you live your life, you do everything you want, and I'm going to adapt because I don't want to set an emotional state. I don't want to take responsibility for the emotional state around me, because then I have to protect it. I actually have to go through life and say, I have to hold on to this. And so we shy away from this very often. And this leads to us thinking we have only two choices in life. We can either do the dependent stage, which is, okay, I'm going into the codependent areas. I don't have boundaries at all. I allow you to do everything that you want, which, is not a bad thing. Like if you rationally think about it, I'm not here to really control somebody, But at the same time, it is a passive way of controlling others by saying, I'm not putting up boundaries because I'm just adapting to you. So I'm not telling you who I am, and I'm just focusing on you getting your needs met. And I expect something in return, because how could you not? If you give of yourself to a point where everything that you are is being diminished just to keep your head above water, like how can you not expect something in return? You just don't have anything left. The people who get resentful, the people who, get in those situations where they have to door slam, it's because we've given too much of ourselves. This is a human trait. This is nothing to be ashamed of. I've done it. But like the last time that I really had to door slam somebody, I told myself, I never, ever want to do this again. This was such a painful experience for me, not just because I had to give up all of my positive thoughts of the other person, right? Because the reason why this works so well is because we say, I have to look at the person from this like angelic place. I have to look at they're all good and I'm bad. I have to prove my worth. They're allowed to be everything that they want, express their needs, and I'm going to cater to that. My needs don't matter. And you can look at it from like this place of, oh, I don't think I'm worthy. Or you can look at it from the perspective of, okay, the third alternative, which is like the healthy medium, is I have to go through life and I have to set an emotional state with whomever I get into contact with. So I already go out into the world with closed doors. And at first sight, this might sound like, oh, I don't want to do that. That means I'm closing my heart off from other people. But you're not. What you're doing is saying the following: I want to open the door for you. If you are protecting my values, if you are protecting what I need protected, you have to knock on my door so you get access to me. And you can think of it, okay, there is, let's say, a room in your house, in your mind, that is just for you. Nobody can enter that. Because if somebody enters the deepest part of your mind, as in, okay, I take in their world, everything that they are, every, aspect of their interpretation of the world, I absorb that, I'm giving up a part of myself. Because we cannot take something in and not give up on ourselves a little bit. It's my world or it's their world. I can take something in as inspiration, but, there has to be a part, I always say this, that's not up for debate. That's a non-negotiable. So think of it as like, this is your favorite room in the house. It's like this amazing living room, and that place is just for you. And nobody gets to enter that. People can now come into your house and, really be in your close vicinity, psychologically speaking, if they have proven that they're going to protect who you are. And this is not about playing games. This is just a very healthy approach to life. This is the interdependent stage. And the great thing about this is that in those situations, you never ever have to door slam again. Because the reason why you have to door slam again is because you allowed people into your amazing living room. And now it's like, I'm going to create this boundary. I'm going to create an emotional atmosphere in which I feel best. In this emotional atmosphere, I'm at peace. In this emotional atmosphere, everything is in a way that makes me feel peaceful and excited at the same time. So there's room for my creativity. There's room for my emotions. I let all of that out. I find healthy outlets. This is one of the things we talk about in bootcamp so often. When it comes to your purpose, we need to have a healthy outlet for our gift, right? And people have to accept us with this. We're not going to just use this in our closest relationships. And then, you say, I want people to join me on my journey while I choose myself. So this is also the concept of, I'm going to fill up my cup of energy, and everything that overflows, I can give to other people. And so think of all the situations where you feel like people are targeting you, you're the victim of bullying, people try to keep you down, people try to compete with you. And our whole thing is, how can I make myself less interesting? How can I make myself less of a target? How can I just, become small and not, make somebody uncomfortable? Because that's when people are going to leave me alone. But people energetically, and they don't have to be, empaths or anything like this. People understand that you're doing this by choice. They understand that you are not small because they have power over you, but that you're making yourself small so they don't see you as a threat. People understand that, because in order for a person who needs to control others as a means for self-regulation, right? It's not a healthy way, but some people hurt themselves. INFJs tend to do that. Other types might hurt others. None of it is healthy in any way, but people who need to control others in order to feel good about themselves, they feel good about themselves when they see a strong person and that they are the reason to make them feel small. So if you, by default, go through life making yourself smaller than you are, meaning, I don't have any boundaries. There's nothing you can say about me. There's nothing you can pinpoint to me being a disturbance to your life because I pretty much don't exist in your energy field. That's our aim. But that's what leads us to those door slamming situations. And so the goal is to understand, okay, this is definitely not leading me to a place I want to. I thought I would, but hopefully we've gotten through enough situations to know that isn't it. So the other thing, I'm going to just go away from society. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm going to be all by myself is first off not really sustainable either. And second of all, it doesn't make us feel complete. Like, it's a great step in between. And I'm happy for everybody who's going through this and that they've reached that point. That's definitely, a step up to us feeling our best. But there's just more to it. So if you feel like I have absolutely everything I ever wanted in my life, I'm completely fulfilled, everything is great, I feel like all my needs are met, you're probably already in the, interdependent stage. If you're in that independent stage, it's pretty much more so that you say, I don't have to ever deal with negative people in this way, but I do sort of feel something is missing. I do feel lonely sometimes. I feel misunderstood. I don't have an outlet for who I am. I don't get to connect with people through who I actually am. And then taking it a step further, understanding every single personality type, has to go into definitely their second function, and then also more into their fourth function as well. So for extroverts, they have to go more into their introverted functions to become balanced. For us INFJs, we have to go into our extroverted functions just like every other introverted type. So for us, that is mainly FE, and the other one is SE. And, being proactive in FE, so not reactive. A reactive way would be, somebody sets up an emotional atmosphere, or you go into a group and they have an emotional atmosphere and you just say, do I like this emotional atmosphere? Do I want to stay here? Am I being tolerated here? Am I being appreciated in that emotional atmosphere? What can I, add to this without destroying the emotional atmosphere? This is a way to be reactive to an emotional atmosphere. This is being reactive in our second function. This is a watered down way of approaching the second function. The real way to do this is to say, I'm going to add a proactive part into my life. And every single person I meet, I will have a closed door. And instead of thinking it as a bad thing, as in, okay, so I'm going out really guarded and that makes me a not open person, that makes me, somebody who's not strong, or, that makes me less of an empath or a helper or healer or whatever kind of archetypes we, connect with. Think of it as those are just healthy boundaries to protect ourselves. Those are healthy boundaries to say, I love myself first. And it is a necessity because we've already tried out that the other ways of approaching it aren't getting us to where we want. And so you can think of it at first glance, oh, it's a negative thing. I always keep my door closed and people have to knock on it. But you can also look at it as, okay, that is something that is sustainable. And then the next sphere comes around, which is, well, that would mean people would see my boundaries. So they would recognize that I'm weird. They would recognize that my boundaries are in different areas than they are for most people. Some things are no problem for me. Other things are completely, not acceptable. People will see that I'm weird. And on top of that, like, how can somebody like me if I'm not giving of myself, if I'm not sacrificing? And I really encourage you all to take a step back and understand that this is always a reflection of, I don't believe I'm worthy of being loved for being who I am, but I do feel everybody else deserves it. I just, don't. And, this goes back to this entire thing of, the God complex. So I really encourage you after this to watch that video. I think it came out last week. But really look at it from this perspective of, you rather want to be disliked for who you are than to be liked for somebody that you're not. And we don't want to approach a situation from a way of, I hope they don't want something from me. I hope I'm not interesting enough so they want to harvest my energy. That is never going to get us to the best place possible. The best way is I'm actually going to go out into the world and I'm going to be the one who creates an emotional atmosphere. So instead of going into a group and thinking, oh, that's an uninteresting group and, so I don't want to engage in that, rather to say, what if I am the one who creates the emotional atmosphere here? What if I am the one who brings so much into this that I set the tone? I'm open to compromise if somebody also wants to set up the tone, but I'm not going to go in it and say, how can I not disturb the peace? If, for example, 5 people are in the group, the moment you come in, there is a sixth energy, and this energy is supposed to have an impact on that group. And at first glance, it is something that requires additional energy. Of course it does. You have to mobilize yourself. This is something that will feel foreign to you because it's a strength, but it's an underutilized strength. Very often we look at our second function and we think, oh, that's about understanding others and, not disturbing the peace. This is when you do this from a reactive place, and it has its value and its benefits. And it's a super important aspect to, dealing with people and creating mutual beneficial situations, but it's just not all. There also has to be the proactive aspect. And if you're able to be so good at the reactive part, then you also have the potential of being really good at the proactive part. You're probably not going to be the one who organizes parties every other week. That doesn't have to happen. But we have to look at, what am I able to create? What kind of emotional atmosphere am I able to hold on to? And really to challenge yourself to just, take it step by step, not doing like some grand thing and saying, now I can hold on to this in those 5 minutes and then I let go. But how can I raise my boundaries? How can I show up more authentically who I am and demand a certain emotional atmosphere for me to feel my best? And, when you do this from somebody who actually does too little of this, you're probably not going to be the controlling type. Because again, if you look at the exact opposite, so if you look at ENFJs and when they fall into their unhealthy state, it's like they need others to play by their rules because otherwise they feel out of control, right? This is the very negative, trait of the ENFJ. So if you lean more into this, you're probably not going to become that version because you're just not even able to do that. And that's definitely not your coping mechanism. Our coping mechanism of choice is to leave the door wide open. And, that's when it leads to door slamming. So lean into the other direction. Challenge yourself. How can I act the next time when I'm around my family? How can I act next time I'm around my friends? What level of energy setting can I bring to the table and hold on to it? So it doesn't have to be that when you're in a group of 5 people that you are the leader and you say, I'm the one who sets the energy, but that you add your flavor. And your flavor is, I'm going to demand that there is no disharmony here, not just outside of me, but also within me. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be in my peace, and I'm not going to allow people to disturb my peace. And in order for other people not to be able to disturb your peace, you have to set up those boundaries. Because this feeling of, oh, I want to create harmony outside of me always means that you're always taking the discomfort within yourself. You're allowing disharmony within yourself. So you're neglecting yourself, you're doing things that are not in your best interest, you're hurting yourself in order to keep the peace outside, in the hope that this will get us to the result we want. And so I challenge you to look at it from the other perspective of I'm going to be peaceful and I'm not going to allow any negative energy to enter my space. And let's say you're at work and there are those 5 colleagues and you're the 6th one. Okay, this is reality. They have to deal with you. They have to deal with your energy. So if you come in there and you're like, well, this is who I am. I'm not going to be okay with somebody putting their frustration onto me. I'm okay with people seeing that I'm not okay with that, right? Because I'd rather be disliked for who I am than to be liked for somebody that I'm not. People very often get drawn to this in a positive way because if you're able to create peace within yourself, people are way more likely to align to that by their own choice, not because you're doing things on the outside, forcing an external, harmony, but saying, I am harmony within me. I have inner peace, I'm good. And that actually allows people to also do things that, makes them protect their boundaries, which inevitably leads to more inner peace within themselves. And so that's how you avoid the door slam altogether. And that's not just you saying, okay, I'm going to walk away because I don't think people can respect who I am. But it's actually the other way around. It's like, this is who I am. And this is my space. And if you want to have any psychological, play with me as in like real energetic exchange, then you have to come into my place while protecting my energy. I can also reach out. I can also talk to you and, reach out into your energy. This isn't about who does the first step, but I'm not going to give more than I'm getting back, right? And what I need to get back is people respecting my boundaries, protecting my peace. And if people are not protecting my peace, then I'm not going to have that exchange anymore. And so allow yourself to have those demands. Think of it from a perspective of, I have the power to set those boundaries. I have the power to set an emotional atmosphere. I'm going to be the one who sets the tone in my life, and that will have an effect on others. I'm not going to allow others to set the emotional state of my being, right? I'm not giving other people the power over my narrative. And through that, you create this beautiful energetic exchange that continuously leads you to having more and more energy because your energy is protected, and then you create more win-win situations. Remember, if you want some more insights, how to get really grounded in that energy of this is who I am, this is how I move forward into creating my INFJ epic life, this is my non-negotiable, this is who I'm going to be in the real world because I know myself and I'm working on it and it isn't something that is just in my head, then definitely get the INFJ Epic Life Formula poster. And if you want to take it to the next level, get the ins and outs of this, then get the INFJ Epic Life audio guide. Everything you need to know you can find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then check out the video you see on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.